Hello, everyone, and welcome to this evening's edition of Romolo-D Reports. I'm so pleased to be here today with Dr. Catherine Horton and with Dr. Marko. And we're here today to have a really interesting and extended conversation on the subject of the corporations who are behind targeting, extrajudicial targeting and surveillance, and in particular, the Crown of London Corporation. Oh, wait, what am I saying? The Crown Corporation of London and the City of London, etc., the financial center of the world, etc. So before we get on to that, I should give you a little bit of background on both Dr. Horton and Dr. Marko. Dr. Catherine Horton is my colleague on Techno-Crime Fighters Forum and on the joint investigation team that we're working on together. And you can find out more about our ventures there by going to jointinvestigation.org or to my website, everydayconcern.net, and see some of the posts there on the Techno-Crime Fighters Forum. We meet every Thursday morning and have a live podcast where we talk about surveillance issues openly and about the use of electromagnetic weapons on the world's populations by a conglomerate of intelligence agencies, security companies, etc., etc. And in fact, that's sort of the focus of our conversation today. We're going to find out who exactly is behind this. Dr. Horton is a particle physicist. She's from Oxford. She's studied at Oxford for several years. She's taught at Oxford for several years. She's also a former project manager from CERN, where she worked at the Large Hadron Collider. She also has a background in systems analysis, and her special interests are in complex human systems. And I understand that as she got into the study of complex human systems, where she particularly focused on court systems and financial systems, she ran up against that thing that many of us run up against as we start exploring what's going on in the world today. She ran up against the enigma and specter of corruption and crime in high places. So that became a subject of her study as well, and that's really what makes her something of an expert, we think, as she has begun to research these subjects and is going to bring to us a great deal on that subject shortly. Dr. Marko is an organizational psychologist and an organizational development consultant who also has a special focus on corporations. He's worked in corporations all his life, I understand, and I think he understands a great deal how corporations work, how they work sort of intrinsically by nature of their very being, and how they've actually worked to rip off humanity. So I'll turn the floor over to him at this point, and he can tell us more about what he's really learned and how it contributes to this conversation as to how corporations are involved in the targeting of humans across the world currently. Hi, Paul. Hi, Catherine.
Hello. I'm going to say some things about corporations that people have never thought about. I'm a systems analyst too, the same as Catherine, and so we overlap a lot on what we found. I want to give you how I got into corporations and how I spend my life in corporations to give you a little bit of idea about where I'm coming from when I'm saying these various things. I started off as a school, not because I wanted to be a school teacher, but because I had a choice between teaching and going to Vietnam. So I chose teaching school. It seemed like it was safer and there were more girls over here, I thought. So I taught school for years and years and ended up teaching in a school out of Washington, in a rural area, and the school had just let everything. It wasn't like a high school. It wasn't like a high school. It didn't have a prom. It didn't have a yearbook. These kids just came to school and then went home. They drop out early because there was a lot of welfare state there, and I was energized. I got down there and I wanted them to have prom. I wanted them to have everything that I had when I went to school. So I worked extra, and I had teams of kids working with me, and I just finished a master's degree going on credentials in management, so I could be principal. Well, my credentials applied to be an assistant. It was a 50% black school. Actually, it was 40 black, 40 white, and then there were American Indians, or pretty much the rest of it. So I couldn't become an assistant principal because we had a white principal, and one of the assistant principals was white, and we did have a black assistant, but I think it was only right because they really needed to show the community that, diverse. So I decided to work in government. So I decided to work for the federal government since I lived in Washington, D.C. Well, it seems like I couldn't work there because they qualify you on a test. And the test involves things like, are you white? Are you a minority? And I just couldn't score enough to get a government job. So I had to go out and look for, I wanted to use my credentials in management. So I went out and looked for a job and finally found one in a Fortune 500 corporation. That was a retail corporation. And they hired me to be manager of management development since I had credentials. I had 2 degrees in education and a degree in management. So I looked good to them. So they hired me as a technical writer and just to keep me on staff until they could create this position. So I'm being a technical writer, and I was bad at this job. I was not a good technical writer, but I learned so much about people and how they respond and stuff. One day I'm in my cubicle, which is what I have. I didn't have an office. The vice president of personnel and the operations vice president grabbed me by the arm and dragged me into the office of the personnel manager. And they had gone through a horrible experience, and we needed to institute what they called genteel management, which really meant they wanted to really conform to the laws passed in 1969, federal rates. What had happened was someone had gotten fired. And during the termination interview, the terminator kicked her down steps and called her the N-word. So they were terrified. I had to fix it. So we started, I knew nothing about organizational development. I knew education and management, but this whole how these things work, systems, I had no idea. So I had a huge budget. I mean, they were throwing stuff at, stop this. So I hired all the top-known consultants to come in and work with me. So I got a premier education in this mysterious field of organizational psychology. It's instead of the brain, you study the organization. How does it think? How does it move? How can you change it? How can you select people for it? How you can get people out of it? So I did that the rest of my time. In corporations, I've never worked in a corporation that wasn't at least a Fortune 500. And that's not because I wanted to. I'd work anywhere. But that's the people that were interested in me because I had the incredible given myself during my years of training. So that's how I can talk about corporate culture. And I think it's culture. I think it's changed the entire world, individual, into being something that I should avoid being. I know a little bit about the history of corporations and how they started off in the United States and finally what they've become. And my estimation of what they've become is the single instrument that the globalists are using to take over the world. They, first of all, used it to take over your mind. That's because of the corporate culture and the that you need to make, and the compromises as they get larger as you make more and more money and move up into the corporation. So I got into this targeted individual thing because it's just part of what's happening in the whole world. It's just part of what's going on. I think corporations, the way I understand them, the way I see it, is the major tool of the globalists to suppress mankind. Now, got some good news from Catherine. She thinks that there's a way that we can show if they're not working in the best interest of humanity, and I can't think of a time when they've ever done that, then they can be dissolved. So as we get further in, I'll go into the culture. We can start off with history of corporations, or we can start off with this horrible crown corporation that Catherine knows a lot about. So how would you like to begin? Catherine, do it?
It kind of sounds like you both could kind of alternate, right? I mean, because Catherine, you're going to be telling us a great deal about the Crown Corporation.
Yes, I think we should just bounce the ball back and forth and see where it takes us, because my experience with this entire topic is that there's so many rabbit holes to go down. It's very interesting. So I think wherever we dive in, it's going to be hugely interesting. So one quick, before I forget, actually, because it's so important, I completely agree with Paul that at the heart of all this is this conversion of everything into corporations, companies and corporations. And I'm still investigating how it was done and where this is leading. I suspect that what is underpinning everything is most likely some sort of global canon law, some sort of church law, according to which the old the really ancient corporations have been set up. And I think this is what has been expanded throughout the world. And it all comes from the very, very old contracts and the legal system that has been going on throughout the world, been spread throughout the world without our knowledge. But as far as dissolving such corporations are concerned, and this is the key point, so I want to actually put it at the beginning of the entire discussion because it's so important. But it's also a point where I think it needs further investigation, and it also needs the help of absolutely everybody to bring it to fruition. Because if it's just a legal principle, it won't actually be applied. But what Paul mentioned is that we've now discovered that the entire globalist crime cartel, what I call the mafia crime cartel, is converting everything into corporations. It's using corporations to commit crimes against humanity, commit illegal acts, and we don't seem to have the means to stop them. We don't have the money, we don't have the manpower. They seem to be all powerful, and they're about to pretty much kill us all with their insanity and their corporate insane culture. And what I found extremely interesting, and I was trying to dig it out, the actual links, but unfortunately it might be on a different computer. But I invite absolutely everybody to look into it because it goes right to the heart of the matter. I came across discussion and articles by lawyers who were looking into how to dissolve such corporations. And they were saying if a corporation goes against any decency, goes against humanity, and commits the atrocious act, more as a mission statement or as their daily operations, that corporation can be dissolved. Its statutes can be revoked. The entire assets of the corporation can be dissolved, and the assets of the corporation can be used to repair the damage. Now, in terms of the Crown Corporation, for example, it has tremendous assets. So it has, and also the Vatican and other structures like that, they have wealth beyond belief, very poorly allocated. And should we reach a point where we discover that they are at the root, at the heart of all this evil, if we apply this principle, then we can dissolve the entire corporation, dissolve this legal fiction, this structure, which is actually just a convention amongst people, and also take all the assets to repair the damage. So that I invite absolutely everybody.
Do you mean if we had some kind of working court system which could enforce such a principle?
Exactly, but this goes right to the heart of the matter, exactly as you say, because it is precisely these corporations that seem to have subsumed the court system. And there are also indications that courts are run like companies, as in little corporations as well, and so on and so on. So at some point, it's like trying to pull yourself out of the sea by your own ears. How can you do that when you're in the sea yourself? So this goes right to the heart of it. But at the end, what we have to do is we have to trace whatever these crimes are, whoever's perpetrating these crimes, we have to trace their money flow and their legal structure and this kind of agreement that they have, this organization, and then see what organization it is. And I guess what we've discovered, it is some sort of ancient corporation. And then humanity has to come together and actually go back to the principle that some fictitious, abstract structure like an organization can never ever be more important or above human beings or life on planet Earth. That goes to the heart of it. It is just as we now find out that our entire monetary system is just a lie. It's not even the lie it pretends to be. It's an even bigger lie. It's totally fictitious, this whole fiat currency. It has been taken up ad absurdum, and we have to go back and we have to realize that the servicing of that financial system cannot go at the detriment, of actual human life, which is what it has done for thousands of years. And it's the same with this corporation. We have to track down. I'm saying it goes back to the Crown Corporation. It goes back to the Vatican. Maybe it has other corporations as well, but the Crown Corporation seems to be the thing. It names itself as the Crown, so it seems to be at least pretty close to the top. And if we found a way, I think by now the staggering number of crimes warrants a serious discussion about how to really pin down the Crown Corporation, its crimes and its assets, and how to dissolve it completely. And how to do it. So what sort of legal principle do we, if this is a global corporation and no single jurisdiction can do it alone, what sort of legal concept, what sort of law do we have globally that applies? And a lot of people go back to, for example, the Bible and, these kind of principles written down in the Bible, and the sanctity of human life and so on, and that this is what God intended. God did not intend to run some stupid corporation that then kills all his creation. It's clearly nonsense. So there are these arguments, but I think we really, all of humanity, should have a hard think about it, because it's more than just a legal question, and it's more than just a philosophical question. It's about actually asset stripping and breaking down the biggest organized crime cartel, their networks, and especially their money flows and assets.